He was mocked, ignored, and called mad. Yet he kept building. For years the skies stayed blue and the world partied on, blind to the warning. But when the first raindrop fell, everything changed. The earth trembled, the heavens split, and mercy shut a door no man could open. This is the story of a storm that wiped out a world, and the one man who was ready. It began quietly, not with lightning, not with thunder, but with a slow decay of the human heart. As generations multiplied and the earth teemed with life, so did wickedness. Beneath the surface of cities and celebrations, something darker stirred. The hearts of men turned inward, chasing pleasure, power, and pride. The world was no longer innocent. The sacred was forgotten, and boundaries blurred. The sons of God took for themselves whomever they desired, and strange offspring, giants, mighty men of renown, roamed the land. Their legends filled songs and stories. But heaven saw deeper. Behind their strength was corruption. God looked upon the earth, and what he saw pierced eternity. Violence covered the ground. The air was thick with cruelty. Every imagination, every thought, every whisper of man's heart was evil, not just often, not occasionally, but continually. It grieved him, not because he was surprised, he is never surprised, but because this was not what he breathed life into. The world he had called good had gone so far, and so a holy sorrow birthed a divine decision. Humanity would be wiped clean. A flood would sweep across the earth, not as vengeance, but as justice. Creation would be undone and restarted. But even in judgment, grace was not silent. Amidst the chaos, one man stood apart. His name was Noah. He was not like the rest. He walked with God, not in grand displays, but in quiet obedience. In a world intoxicated with sin, Noah remained sober in spirit. Where others laughed at truth, he listened. Where others followed the crowd, he followed the voice of the unseen. To him, God gave an impossible task. Build an ark. Not just a vessel, but a sanctuary, a womb for the world's rebirth. 3 stories high, layered with pitch, detailed to divine specification. A refuge not only for his family, but for the very breath of life itself. 2 by 2, male and female, every kind. Noah obeyed, without delay, without understanding, without applause. While the world carried on, eating, drinking, marrying, building, he hammered, he sawed, he prepared, and for 120 years he built, while the world laughed. But the clock of mercy was ticking, and soon the sky would break. Then the silence shifted. After generations of warnings, after a century of preparation, the final week began. God's voice pierced through once more, not in thunder, but in quiet instruction. 7 days. That's all that remained. Noah moved with urgency, not panic. The ark, now finished, stood like a mountain of obedience in the open plain, a monument to faith, a mystery to the crowds. Yet, it was time. Animals gathered, not by Noah's power, but by divine design. They came from every corner of creation. Birds, cattle, creeping things, male and female, 2 by 2, 7 by 7. The march of life moved with sacred rhythm toward salvation, and Noah, 600 years old, stepped into the ark. He didn't step in alone. Beside him were his wife, his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. 8 souls, 8 destinies, chosen to carry the world forward. Then something happened that would never be forgotten. The door closed. But it wasn't Noah who shut it. It was God. A final act of divine separation, mercy sealed within, judgment waiting without. Then it began. The sky darkened, not with clouds, but with consequence. The fountains of the great deep burst open beneath the earth, as if creation itself was weeping. And above, the windows of heaven released their fury. Rain, cold, endless, unrelenting. For 40 days and 40 nights, the heavens poured and the earth bled. What had never been seen became undeniable. The waters rose with a terrifying speed, swallowing crops, homes, towers, mountains. Screams echoed across the hills, but the door remained shut. The ark lifted. What had once rested on solid ground now floated, carried by the chaos it was built to survive. It wasn't just a boat, it was a boundary. Between life and death, between obedience and rebellion, between what was and what would be. Under the churning waves, dreams drowned. Every living thing with breath in its lungs, fowl, cattle, beast, man, was swept away. The proud, the strong, the many, silenced by the flood. And yet, inside the ark, there was peace. Not because the storm didn't rage, but because the promise held. Amid the cries and crashing, there was purpose. Noah didn't just survive, he endured with hope. For 150 days, the waters ruled the earth. The ark drifted, carried by the hand of the one who had not forgotten. Every creak of the wood was a reminder. Every drop on the roof was a countdown. And deep within the silence, something holy was stirring. The world had been washed clean. Now, it would wait to breathe again. If this story is stirring something in you, pause and give this video a like. It helps us share God's word with more hearts. And there's so much more to this powerful journey ahead. Let's keep going. And then, the wind blew. Not a violent storm, but a whisper from heaven. A divine breath over the flooded world. The same God who sent the waters now commanded them to retreat. The fountains of the deep were sealed. The windows of heaven were shut. The rain, which had roared without end, ceased. The floodwaters began to sink, inch by inch. And after 150 days, the ark, battered but unbroken, rested gently upon the mountains of Ararat. But Noah did not rush. He waited. Day after day, he watched. And then slowly, he opened a single window. The first light in months filtered through. A raven was sent forth, strong, restless, but it did not return. Then a dove, delicate, searching. But it too found no place to land and returned to Noah's hand. He waited again. 7 days, another dove. This time it came back, with an olive leaf, fresh, alive, a whisper of green in a world that had drowned, a sign that hope had taken root. 7 more days passed. The dove was sent again, but this time, it never came back. The message was clear. The earth was healing. In the 601st year of Noah's life, on the first day of the first month, the covering of the ark was peeled away. Dry ground appeared, a world reborn. And then, God spoke again. not in judgment, but in welcome. Go forth. Noah stepped onto the soil, not just as a man, but as a witness. Behind him, his family followed. Around them, life emerged. Beasts, birds, creeping things, all released to breathe again. And the very first thing Noah did was not to build a shelter, but an altar. From the clean beasts and fowls, he gave offerings, not out of fear, but out of deep reverence. And God, receiving the sweet savour, made a silent vow, a vow that would shape eternity. Though the world had changed, one truth remained. The heart of man still wrestled with sin. But instead of wiping the slate again, God extended grace. He spoke a promise, a covenant not just with Noah, but with all generations to come. A declaration not of wrath, but of mercy. Never again would a flood destroy all flesh. Never again would the earth be undone. And to seal that vow, God placed a bow in the sky. A rainbow, not just a marvel of colour, but a symbol of divine restraint. A sign that judgment had passed, and hope now hung in the clouds. Every time rain would fall, every time skies would darken, the bow would appear, and remind both heaven and earth of a promise kept. Noah's family received the blessing. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. But with it came a reverence for life, a sacred warning. Human blood was not cheap, for man was made in the image of God. In the years that followed, Noah became a farmer. He planted a vineyard. He lived, he stumbled, he learned, and eventually he died, 950 years old. But his legacy did not. His story remains etched in the pages of time, not as a tale of destruction, but of salvation, a reminder that even when the world forgets God, one obedient heart can change everything. The ark is no longer needed. The rainbow still remains, but the question still echoes across time. If God whispered a warning today, would you hear it? Subscribe to follow more powerful Bible stories that stir the soul and awaken faith. And in the comments below, answer this. What would you build if God asked you to prepare for something the world has never seen?